This episode of Up for Discussion is brought to you by Ultra Products. Ultra Products is nearly a 4,000 square foot archery shop located in Fairfield, Illinois. They carry a full line of bows including Matthews, Bowtech, Darton, Bear, and Raven. Ultra also has a fully equipped service department that works on all types of bows. Come into Ultra Products and let us take care of all your archery needs. All right, here we are. This week on Up for Discussion, we've got some good stuff.
Good stuff.
This week is tips to improve your hunting. So before we get started, I want to do a couple things. I'd like to thank some people. I'd like to thank Darren Bailey for coming on last week.
Yep, that was good.
Awesome show. I felt like he gave us some things to think about.
Some eye-opening stuff for sure.
Yep. I'd also like to thank Doug and Chris Doty for coming on this week. It was kind of spur of the moment. We originally had Craig Clark booked. Craig has come down with I don't know.
Montezuma's Revenge.
That's or something along those lines. He messaged me this morning saying that he had a bad case of food poisoning and couldn't make it. So I quickly called Doug and Chris, and they were like, absolutely. So, and I also would like to thank Jarrett. Jarrett's back there running the board.
He's real hero.
That's right. He is the real hero. It's been several weeks ago. I asked him if he'd be interested in doing that. He jumped up and took the lead on it, and I really appreciate it.
He drawed back a 100-pound bow today,
Yeah,
too.
he did, and it didn't even look like it hurt that
Didn't look
much.
that bad.
There was some popping going on, but
I have a greater deal of respect for him now.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah. I had a great deal before that. But
So just want to thank everybody
Thank you.
that has played a part. This is episode 5, and like I said, this week we're doing tips to improve your hunting. Top tips to improve your hunting. We're looking at all the things that we have learned over the years. Me and Lathan, we've been hunting now for, I would say between the two of us, close to 50 years of experience, and I'd say Doug has like at least 50 years of experience on his own. So.
I knew it would go.
So
that would
Chris,
be, yeah, I'll leave it there.
I mean, and Chris has been right there by his side since
Chris has got about 2 or 3 years in.
since
Yeah,
birth.
couple.
So,
Since he was 2 or 3 years old.
yeah, I remember waking up to the shotgun going off turkey hunting when I was itty bitty.
You should just stuff him in the backpack and take him.
Pretty
or-
much.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that picture of you where your coat is like down at your ankles.
Oh yeah, in the
Yeah.
orange, yeah.
Nice.
That actually fits me now.
it took a lifetime to grow into.
So, before we get started, one thing I would like to touch on, if you guys are watching on Facebook, if you wouldn't mind like, share, comment. If you guys comment along the way, if you guys have questions, we're going to be talking about a lot of things that we've learned over the years. And because of that, if there's something that you're like, I would like to know more about that, let us know. You'll see typically, periodically, you'll see where it will ask if you got questions, send them to us. All you've got to do is on Facebook, go ahead and send that question in, and we'll answer it along the way. So
We'll do our best.
that's right.
We should have actually got our little calculators out and did the math.
Yeah.
I don't know that
started-
we want to do the math.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, I started in the 6th grade.
It's good for people to know.
Yeah. So I started deer hunting. I hunted many things before that, a lot like Chris. Dad hauled me coon hunting and rabbit hunting, and my grandpa took me rabbit hunting and gave me a semi-automatic shotgun, but would only give us one shell. Wouldn't even let us have another one in our pocket because they knew we would slide that second,
yeah.
for that follow-up shot. So, yeah. So, since the 6th grade, though, is when I started bow hunting.
Yeah, I was bow hunting at 10 years old. I know for sure.
So you do have near 50 years of...
We cannot ever get a show done without that. But
Yeah.
So I could pull back 50 pounds when I was 10. And back in those days, the let off was not like it is now.
Right, different. It was a
but-
different animal back
yeah,
then.
but it
What
was-
how old are you in the 6th grade? I would have been 11ish.
Yeah.
11ish.
Yeah.
I was about that age when I started bow
So-
hunting, I think.
30 years.
I'm
I've
the
got-
latecomer amongst all of us.
Yeah, you
I didn't start hunting until I didn't start
deer
hunting.
archery hunting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my whole life, Dad took me squirrel hunting, like you had said.
Yeah, and coon
Roughly,
hunting.
how old were you when you started bow hunting for deer?
Around 15.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy, he was late to the party.
Yeah. Lathan took me.
It's amazing he's ever killed anything.
He's trying to catch up with us.
Hey, listen up. I killed my first time out.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Was it your first? Was
This
it
is my
the first time?
out? Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. And
Big,
that has
big 8 point.
has nothing to do. Can I tell that story real quick?
Sure.
So, I put him in my famous stand. We even maybe made mention of it. Was it
Yeah,
on a podcast?
The Iron Stand, the very first.
Yeah. We didn't tell that story already, did we?
No, we didn't tell the
You
story.
did mention the stand, though.
Yeah, the Iron Stand.
Mm-hmm.
Put him in that spot that morning, and had another friend with us, Chad Higgins,
Yep.
good friend of mine from high school that I bow hunted with for years. But he was with us, and so we put Wes in the Iron Stand. Me and Chad went somewhere else. I don't remember. We didn't get anything that morning, but I remember getting back, pulling in where we were supposed to pick up Wes because we dropped him off. And I guess it was your first time out.
Very first.
That's impressive.
So you gave him this sweet spot. And
I
you
put
went
him
on-
in the kill, the kill stand that,
I
it's
get
just one of those
Old
spots.
Reliable,
Yeah, old
yeah.
reliable. A lot of people killed their first deer out of that stand. But anyhow, so we pull in there and we're waiting. It's, I don't know, 9:30, 10, somewhere in the neighborhood of when you get down, and maybe even sooner because we were young and
Right.
we were more apt to be out there probably at 8:30 or something. But anyhow, we pull in there and we're waiting. And I was like, man, he's still hunting, And we sat there 15 minutes, and Wes comes walking down that. There's a trail. Remember it
I
coming
was
out
like,
there?
yeah, boys.
He had his swag.
I could picture
Had
this.
his first deer swag on, coming around the corner, carrying his Whitetail Legend 2.
Well, that's right.
Is that what you was using? Wasn't
Yeah.
it? My Whitetail Legend 2, I think's what it was, Bear. We talked about that bow as well. But anyhow, he comes around the corner, and I was like, I told Chad sitting in the truck, I was like, he shot one. You can just see the
Nobody
you can
walks
see
like
the
that.
glow. Yeah, nobody walks like that. So he comes out, walks up to us. We're like, hey, did you do any good? He's like, got him, got one, hit one. We're like, no kidding, what was it? Nice 8 point. And I mean, you're like, we got all excited, and then at the same time, you don't say what you're really feeling. I can't believe. Because at that time, I don't think I'd ever killed a Pope and young deer.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Wow.
And you still hadn't, had you? Because we're going to finish the story.
I'm looking forward to this.
So we walked back in there. The whole thing was hilarious. We walked back in there, and we get out there in the honeysuckle and briars.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
there was-
had me climb back up in the
Well,
tree.
yeah, we were out in the brush, and remember, we couldn't find
Yeah.
blood. We couldn't find an arrow. And we're like, I was like, are you sure? He's like, I know I hit it. I know I hit it. I was like, so I had learned enough to know when you get out of the stand, every deer hunter knows sometimes you walk out there and it's like, I'm in a different world here all of a sudden. So that's where Luminox and stuff like that I'm tapping. But I go, get back up in the tree and make sure we're standing where he was. Guide us in, So he gets back up in the stand. And he's like, oh, no, you guys, that, everything changes when you're back. You can see.
sure
He's like,
does.
you're way off. So I said, well, walk me right to where that deer was standing. And he walks me through the brush, and he walks me through the hollers and the hills. It's not hilly there. But I get way out there, and I'm like, he's like, right there. I was like,
It's the best shot of my life.
I said, right here. And I'm looking up through honeysuckle and briars. He goes, yeah, he was standing right there. And I was like, all right, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm getting down. We're in the right. We were 20 yards off looking for blood in the wrong area. And he's like coming down. I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when you were walking
Oh,
to
yeah, you
us,
told me.
I told Chad, I was like, Nah. I was like, he didn't. He thought he hit this deer, and I was like,
I mean, here's the deal.
I was like, we're gonna have to.
First time out, I didn't know what I was doing.
No,
Right.
no,
And we're both kids.
yeah,
And
high
so
schoolers.
and I never had anybody teach me or anything. I was like, I can shoot through that stuff.
yeah.
I was like, it'll go right through.
So I was already planning on like, well, we'll look, and then we'll tell him, hey,
Let him down easy.
This is how it's tough out here, man. It's it's tough bow hunting and all that. And as he's walking over, I take like 2 steps, and there's blood and a broken bloody arrow. I was like, well, I'll be doggone.
He actually hit it.
I said he hit it, and we tracked it up a little ways, and finally we found it. And it was this massive 4-pointer about like this. Am I right?
I still got it at home, man.
Yeah. So, oops,
Yeah.
hit my mic. But anyway, so I was like, I felt better about the whole situation.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, if it's your first time in the woods, any buck that shows up is a big. That's the
Yeah.
biggest one you've ever
It,
seen.
it was awesome, and it's probably more memorable than many of the deer we've killed because I can remember nearly every detail about that.
Yeah.
I remember walking up over, and he was there across a little low spot ditch, and there he was, and I was like, he's a 4-pointer. Was he a 6? He's a 4.
No, he was a 4.
He's a 4.
Was it a
quite
good
neat.
hit?
Well, see, I
Yeah,
thought I
he's-
saw one side. That was
Oh, you counted it all up on
Yeah,
one
he
side.
got him. He made a pretty good shot. I was like, dude. And it was probably 40 plus.
yeah.
It wasn't like an 80 or something. It was like 40 plus.
Yeah,
In those days, I was like, that's out of the spectrum, man. That's out there. So anyhow, that's how we'll kick off. That allows people to get comfortable listening to us, and then we can start with these amazing tips on how you too can kill a massive 8-pointer on your first time out.
That's
Yikes.
good. All right. So, who do we want to start with?
Do we want to do? We don't want to probably do because we're going to do basically if we can get to them 5 apiece,
Yeah,
and we have the understanding we have not shared with each other.
we have not. For all those watching at home, we
yeah.
try and do that in order that it's more real.
Right, to make the conversation a little more organic and let it happen. So, do we want to go through all 5 individually? And we have the knowing that some of them are, hopefully, if they don't, we are amazing. But some of them will probably overlap with
at
each other.
least-
I would say a lot of them will probably overlap.
Yeah,
So one guy could do the whole show pretty much right now.
yeah.
So I would say this.
And
Let's
number
let
one
our
on all you
guests-
guys is probably trail cameras, right?
I made it. Now listen,
I don't have one about trick.
I made an effort not to bring that up.
All right. I'm teasing.
I can't
anyway.
promise that.
I'm teasing. So,
So
So
let's
go.
start with the guests. So we'll start. Let's have Doug start with first, and then we'll have Chris. do
and
his.
this isn't maybe necessarily your number one. It is just
No,
one
right,
of
right.
one of 5 that you picked.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
didn't
'cause I
necessarily.
didn't-
I didn't put mine in order in terms of importance to me.
Right,
I
me
just
me
kinda-
neither.
I just kind of.
And we may get into a discussion on that later.
Yeah, yeah.
See how it goes.
The,
But
the first thing on my list, and it simple as it is plan ahead. The season's a long way off. Don't wait until October to make the plans that you're going to have for that season. And if you're a tree stand hunter, you know where you're generally going to hunt. Get in there, do your tree stand work ahead of it. If you're going to pre-hang stands, get that stuff done. Do some preliminary scouting well in advance to kind of get an idea. If it is a new property, learn it. If you are out too far outside of winter, if it's already spring and summer, you're going to miss a lot of the sign that you would have been valuable to you that from the past November. But you at least would get to know. But
well, clarify that because some people, like shed hunters, pick up on that. But
Right.
if you're not a big shed hunter, sometimes shed hunting, man, it tells you all kinds of information. You find those old big community scrapes and
Right.
stuff like that.
so what it boils down to is your primary approach in terms of deer hunting. There's all kinds of hunting, but just because deer hunting is the focus of most people, their primary passion, if you're a hunter, is for most people is deer hunting, I would say.
Yeah.
So just go along
around
with that.
here for sure.
Right, right. And I mean, by the way, these things could apply
To
to lots
Yeah.
of
Sure.
types of hunting. But so that November time when your primary attack during the rut, that sign those deer may not even be where that sign was located in the summer,
Right.
in the spring.
Yeah.
in the early fall.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that as season goes on, even seasons,
Yes.
Yeah.
that the movement changes and that the reason why changes.
That's right. And not just the bucks, though we take notice of them more easily, but deer in general, does will have a smaller home range. They don't necessarily move miles, but their habits do change from season to season a little
Yeah.
bit. But if you do have the advantage, like where we are right now, the season has just ended weeks ago. A lot of the sign that's valuable to us about what deer we're doing during the season is still visible, with the exception of some maybe bottomland that's flooded and some sign has now been covered by leaves and washed away and whatever. So if you have the advantage to be there now, you start planning. You look at that sign. That sign's not going to be there in August like it is now. It's not going to look the same. It'll
Right,
be
it
harder to see.
disappears.
It kind of just disappears and wears away.
Some of the rubs obviously stay
some will
around.
still
You can
be
find
visible.
those tree rubs.
But
yeah.
even when the greenery comes out and that ground cover
you'll
comes out,
miss 'em.
you just can't see what you can see now. So right now, valuable information, and start using that information, looking forward to the next season, and go ahead and make your preliminary plans. In terms of where would I hang a stand? If I'm going to hunt here and I'm going to hunt out of a stand, some guys don't hunt out of stands, but if you're going to, where am I going to do that? And if it's going to be a portable setup, maybe just go ahead and clean up a tree or clean up some shooting lanes. And, if it's a hang and hunt setup or a saddle setup, but at least have some tentative plans so that you don't have to bulldoze the woods in November when you need it to be pristine.
Right.
And so for me, the planning ahead is, and it's cumulative. What you learn about a particular property this year is valuable in coming years.
Sure.
And you
Because
learn
you've
a little
got
more.
community scrapes
Right.
that are somewhat in the same
That's right.
spot
Now-
every year, sometimes under the exact same limb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very often, I'll find that I'll hone back in on that very same tree limb that scrape is under year after year after year, and there'll be things to be careful about. Things will affect it, crop rotations, things like that. So it won't
One thing
always
that
be
makes me
identical.
think too is you've got to be careful for the guy that's hearing this time of year when you go into your spot, there will be runs that are unbelievable because deer have already grouped back up.
Yep.
Right.
But that deer or that sign is not for season.
Yep, not necessarily. That's correct.
Yeah. Like it might be for a late season, but it will not be for your early season hunting, chances are.
I sometimes use those late season runs to be like, all right, there's a lot of deer here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. To make an assessment. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
And we live in a world where, yes, the deer change. You know what I'm saying?
right. Right.
But it's not like the mountains in elk hunting where they
Right.
can be 2 mountains over and you're out of the game.
Yeah. Completely. Right.
You know,
right.
it may just be. I've got woods, that we've hunted that's like, man, this year this side is just not the same.
Right. Right.
And you move,
And I
you
think
move
that's where
200.
crop rotations change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, because one year there's corn on this side, next year there's corn on the other side, beans and everything
Right,
changes.
right.
So
Well, and you compound that with weather pattern changes where you get a year where you've got flooded bottomland.
right,
And if that was normally where you'd be sitting and it's under 3 feet of water or 10 feet of water or
Probably
whatever it might
shouldn't
be.
sit there,
Yeah,
should
it's no longer your primary approach.
Yeah.
So now you get a real dry year. Some of those areas could be exactly what you should be doing.
all
So-
better, yeah.
Yeah, and so there are going to be things to look out for, but those are some of the other points that I have that
Yeah.
would kind of get into some of that. But for me, one thing is to plan ahead. To don't let the season creep up on you. Start doing some of that work now, so you don't have to do all of that work later. There'll always be things you have to do during the season.
Right, you got to make adjustments
Yes,
on the fly.
one of my other points.
Yeah.
But
So we pretty much covered all Doug's points in the first one.
I knew it was going to be
Get
easy.
prepared.
Yeah, be
Plan
prepared.
ahead.
Plan ahead.
Yeah. All right, Chris.
I think the big thing for me that has helped me, especially in the stand, is preparing for the shot. As soon as I get in the stand, I'm ranging everything, every little stick and twig, anything that I can make as a marker for when an animal comes in. Okay, I know that log is 25 yards,
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. But Another part of that I also do, and I don't know how many people do this, but every time a deer comes in, I mentally think about, okay, she's at my 35-yard marker, slightly quartering away, and just play every single deer that comes through. Okay, this is where I would need to aim to kill that deer, and blah, blah, blah. But that's what I like to do. That's the first thing I do when I get in the stand is range everything.
Yeah.
And it seems to cut down on your panic when something does happen.
Yeah.
Kind of a mental mental
Yep.
awareness
Yes.
preparing.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of ties itself to getting prepared ahead, but
Yeah.
right in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I do the same thing. I mean,
Yep.
I just go ahead and use my imagination.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
was like, I see him. Yeah,
Yep.
he's gonna come right down to
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah.
shoot
I
him
do
right-
that quite
you know.
often.
You know that.
So I go ahead and range, and you're aware of all your good openings
That's right.
and stuff like that. And if it's a spot you've hunted for 10 years, you have that locked in.
Well, you know,
But especially when you're in a new spot, you need to be like, man, I don't know for sure if he's going to come from here. I mean, if you've looked at the sign, you may have a roundabout idea. But when you're on that new spot, it's good to map that whole place out in my head. That's what I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I seldom ever range a deer
right.
unless I'm shooting a food source and they're way out
Right.
past
Right.
that 40 yards, and then I may be ranging
Well,
deer.
there's a big difference to a featureless field where there's not, you can, okay, that tree is this or that bush is
Yeah.
that. When there's nothing there, a lot of
Yeah.
times you're forced to have to range that deer at the time. But where there are things that you can pick out, landmarks ahead of time, I think everybody probably does it to some degree. I mean, I guess I do it without even really rationalizing what I'm doing, but I'm always thinking, and I guess there's always that thing in a hunter where you're envisioning he'll come out of here and he'll walk down that trail and he'll turn. And you know what I mean? Like where the
The difference between Doug and Doug goes ahead and shoots at him, and it's bad.
well,
But he's saying what he's basically saying is he makes a point on purpose
Yeah.
right,
to do that.
Yeah.
which
Well,
is a good idea.
yeah.
And I can speak from experience this year. I did not do that, and I suffered because of it.
Because
Like-
you got in a tight situation where I needed to
did.
make a shot. And
Yeah. Like that's typically in my routine. But I got to this spot I literally had pictures of the deer, knew that he was right around the area. I slipped in, had the right wind. And when I got up there, it was dark. So my mindset was not start ranging, obviously. And literally as soon as I started, the sun was coming up, deer were all over the place.
It was happening.
Yeah. And my mindset never went back to do your basics.
Yeah. Right.
And because of that, man, I suffered because of it.
your biggest one there, right? I'm not to point out your flaws.
No, that's all right. Point them out.
But because I think if you told me right, your rangefinder wasn't handy.
It wasn't. Well,
Which is another.
I had it right here, but it was tucked it wasn't
tucked.
handy.
Yeah, it
it
wasn't
was,
where-
it was tucked.
Like,
And I was
generally
worried that in the
mine's-
process.
Yeah,
he
generally
would see
mine's
me.
on my bino system. Well, it's always on my bino system, and it tucks. But I generally untuck it and let it hang.
Yep.
It's on
Yeah.
I can swing it right
Yeah.
there. So you're saying maybe if I would have had, or you would have had that,
Oh, if I had done that,
because you misjudged your yardage.
I did.
How much did you misjudge by roughly?
I misjudged it by 9
mile.
yards
Might as well be a mile.
Might as well be a mile.
as well. So,
So you're off 9 yards, which
and
people,
the trajectory there was weird because I'm sitting on top of a big hill.
yeah,
And so I'm looking at it. I feel like that deer is way further than what he is.
yeah, it is deceiving.
Yeah. So
And it tunnel vision.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's tunnel vision, especially on a good deer, which that was
Yeah.
a good deer.
Yeah.
You get tunnel vision, and as soon as panic starts,
Oh no. You're
panic from the standpoint of I don't know the yardage. That's when you second
Things
guess
fall
and you
apart.
shoot it for 9 yards too far or 9 yards too less or 10.
Yeah, if your decision making, if you boil it down to when you're already in a panic to start thinking, you're in trouble. And that's what.
And there's liable to be people listen to a podcast like this of guys sitting around talking about all this strategy and things and not understand it until they've been in that situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what my buddy Nate this year was teaching him how to. Actually, he really had never hunted deer at all, and we were teaching him how to bow hunt. And
Yeah.
that was the first thing I told him. Was like, when you get in a tree, range everything, and just prepare. And one of his second or third hunts, I went and actually sat with him, and it was a stand that he had sat several times. And as soon as we got in there, I was like, hey, how far is that? He's like, oh, 25 yards. Well, how far is that? Oh, 34 right there. And that's 12. And he shot at 3 deer, one right on the last day, and it was a long shot. But he shot the deer he shot at. His first one, smoked it. Second one, killed it.
Yeah, he
And,
did
you know,
that.
and that was, his second one was a 30-yard shot. And he goes, it's 30 yards, and I know where it is.
Yeah.
And that's somebody that,
He did real good.
oh, he did really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of cool to watch that. Somebody who knows nothing about the woods be able to take that and actually do it.
It's
and
always
succeed.
it's always neat to watch someone develop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And it can be frustrating
enjoy
too.
it.
Like it's neat, yes, but you know when things start going south,
Yeah.
it gets they stress out.
Yeah, but I've always enjoyed that part of it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
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 I mean, not like a weird ha 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 type. No, I'm not talking about that. But if you've hunted for several years, you're like, man, I know.
I've done that,
I know.
yeah.
Golly gee,
And-
I've done that.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that's
you-
right.
Someone hits one in the shoulder, and you're like, oh, yep, been there. You know.
Right. The so that one is just mentally
Yeah.
lock some things in from your spot, whether it's a stand or a blind or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's good.
That is a good
Yeah.
one for sure.
Do you draw before you get
No.
up there?
No, usually, if I'm drawing on a deer, the arrow might fly. So I leave
No,
that
no.
bow
I
until it's
mean,
time.
do you draw
Ahead
when
of
you
time.
get
Oh,
up
when
ahead
you
of
first
time.
get there.
Sometimes I will draw just like if it's a stand that I've never been in before. I will a lot of times do that, especially if there's like cover real close. Be like, okay, this is my limit.
Some trees will surprise you.
Yes, they will.
yeah.
You draw your bow back, and then you start checking lanes. You're like, ooh,
yeah.
I'm going to have to get out on the end of
Yep.
the
Well,
platform
I did have that happen one
because
time.
my elbow or something's
Yeah.
contacting the
One of
tree
my-
or tree limb.
One of my biggest bucks that I shot with my bow, I went to full draw and never had thought about this limb. And when I went to full draw, I realized, oh, I have to actually bend down and try to make this shot happen. And it was never something that crossed my mind at all.
I draw a lot of times, multiple times,
Yeah.
especially when it gets cold. I'll start, once every 45 minutes or an hour. Look around, you don't see nothing.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Yeah. Well, those cold shots are tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They are.
especially this year, I was pulling a lot more weight, so
A little more
I want
critical.
to keep things loose and free, which would lead me into my number one.
Let's hear it.
All righty.
I thought of this one, and this year was probably maybe one of my, I shouldn't say my worst one for it, but as I hunted this year, I tried to work on it, and I wanted to make it better, and I want to make it way better before next year, is getting pretty good, it would help you to be in good physical shape.
No doubt.
If you're physically fit, of course, with elk hunting, that's, and we're not
One of the
so much
first
talking
things,
about that, but if you're physically fit for elk hunting, those guys are more apt to kill an elk. And I say that only killing one in my whole life. But you go there one time and you have an understanding.
The first day.
Yeah, the first day is like, I should have been a little better
Yep.
prepared. I guess that'd
no
be,
doubt.
it falls in preparation. But what I was thinking about this year, there's several times, because maybe I wasn't in as good a shape as I've been deer seasons past, that you don't do certain things.
Yeah.
Right.
When your heart is saying you need to be back at such and such, and your mind and your body is saying that's chisel plowed all the way across there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I'm tired, whatever. My feet are going to be as big as, to walk across there and get to that stand.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you would have killed the deer there, but I've always been like, follow my heart to the spot that I want to set in, and your heart says go, and your body's like, just sit right here.
this is
you
a
got
good
this
spot."
spot right here. He's liable to come by here, and every once in a while you do that, and you look across the field, and you're like, there he goes.
Yeah.
He goes in that corner or past that edge back there where I really wanted to go. But so I think physically,
My heart's told me that several times from the vehicle. I just fell asleep.
Hold up and been like,
Well, you know, it's easy if your physical body don't want to carry you there.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk yourself out of things.
Hey, it's really easy. I mean, before you leave your house, that alarm goes off in the morning, and you hear the wind out there, and you're like, it's cold, it's windy. Your mind's already trying to talk you out of getting up and doing what you know you need to do.
Yeah.
And you got to fight that the whole time. And if on top of that, you aren't in very good shape, which, you know, I mean, every season's a little different, but and if you're using a climber or if you're saddle hunting where you really need to do something when you get there, you can really talk yourself out of some of that work.
Well, I'd also argue the fact that you're probably safer.
Yeah.
If you're in physical good shape, you're safer. You know, you're not as apt to tear something.
Right.
And people may hear that on this and be like, I don't think that, you know, and that may be true. But I guess I would say, come hunt with me. For me, it would help me to be in better shape.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had that one year where I was like Professor Clump climbing up the tree. Kind of tough.
Yeah.
But
It took me a second to process that, what you're saying. But I have an instance this year. I, on the ground, moving about, spot 2 great big bucks out in the cornfield. And I had to put the sneaking on them, you know, to maneuver. And I had to stay low.
yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's ever tucked their bow under their arm and did squats
Oh, it's rough.
for 250 yards, you know, to stay below the roll of the hill or below the cornstalk or whatever it is. I went like 40 yards and I was like, oh my word. You know, I was down on my hands and knees trying to get my breath and my heart was racing. I was like, Lathan, you got to, and that's what made me think of it. You got to get yourself in a little better shape because, you know, I could have got across there, but I just stopped. I was like, I'm just going to wait here. This is where I made a decision. I'm going to wait here instead of trying to beat those deer to that corner.
You give up opportunities. And, you know, even just if you think about it, you know, times when I'm not in as good a shape, even my confidence in the things that I'm doing, like my balance and agility, like I know that I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I put 80-pound limbs on my bow this year kind of because of that.
There you go.
Kind of because of that. Because,
right.
you know, you get, I'm in my 40s now, and you start getting to that age, and I think I'm not knocking anybody out there that goes down in weight. You know, you do you, boo. That's what I always say. Whatever works for you. I mean, if you got to, you got to. I'm not saying that. But, you know, the old timers used to say, if you don't use it,
You lose.
you lose it. And I just to be ornery, I was like, let's put 80 pounds on this rascal and go back to pulling more weight. So maybe when I have to step down from 80, because, you know, life is life,
Right.
I'll step down to 70 instead of 60. And that's maybe my thought.
I think JD said it pretty good there.
What do you say?
He said, if your body gives out, your mind soon follows.
yeah.
Yeah. What happens if your mind's already given out?
Is there an exercise for Doug's mind?
We got those learning games.
So I'm not saying marathon runner, but, you know, I would say when deer season gets close, get up and do some walking, get out and beat some feet and
Plan ahead.
Yeah, get your cardio up just a little
That's
bit.
where I feel like going out west has really helped us.
It does help.
Oh,
As you come
definitely.
back and you're cramming and ramming, you know, through rut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the holidays hit. You eat turkey and you eat pie and
Things start to change.
and you know.
But your hunting changes because of it.
Yeah.
It does.
really
I
does.
slow down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm bent over doing the squat walk through a ditch trying to get ahead of 2 bucks. I was like, I can't. I'm going to puke.
Well, you figure those 2 weeks in Colorado in the mountains, you immediately learn what you haven't done.
Yeah.
And then by the time the 2 weeks is over, you're not the same guy that started out.
Absolutely not.
And when you peel out of there, you are definitely in better shape. Now, you may be sore. You may have some bumps and bruises,
Very tired.
but you are in better shape. You hit these flat areas here, and you can just about hit them on a dead run. And, you know,
I ran out
Arnold.
quite a bit this
That's
year.
what I look like, Arnold.
Look at my arms, they're huge. No, I found myself. I only did it after dark of evenings, walking out this year. I would hold on my bow, and I had that little exo stand on my back a lot of times, and I would jog back to the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't find myself doing that very often.
All right, let's move on. We got to get through them. What's Wes's?
All right. My
what's
number
Wes's
one
tip?
was surround yourself with people who are going to pull the best out of you.
Oh, this is deep.
Because I know how I am, and I told Lathan this when we were out in out in Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
He told me one day, he's like, "You don't need to get up and come with me every day." I'm like, "No, I've got to."
Yeah.
Because it's the only thing that keeps me like doing what I know I need to do.
Yeah.
Like I could sit back and that'd be fine. But my mental mindset, I don't know, there's something about it that changes.
Well, I mean that's across the board because we didn't hunt whitetails this year together,
we did.
so to speak. A couple of times we went, but I missed hunts because there was mornings I knew or whatever that I thought I don't have nobody to meet.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have to be in White County in an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and when you did that, when you have that, it does drive you to be like, oh, my body's saying no, but here we go.
Well, I mean,
Like they're expecting me to
Right.
be there.
and I told you that actually on the last trip, not this year's, but it was the last one. Whenever we were hiking up that mountain that is like our nemesis.
The ridiculous hike.
Yeah.
The one that
and,
almost
and
killed
I
you 2
remember
years
my
earlier.
feet were just like aching, and I was like, "You've got it. You've got it." And the reason why I thought that is because he had it.
Yeah.
And I know that when it comes to hunting, if you want to be the best that you can be, surround yourself with someone who is the best you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done.
I would agree with that.
So
Yep.
I'd say that's right.
For sure.
Okay, but the guy that's
I'm
the
trying to
best,
look around and be like, which one of us is he surrounding himself with?
the guy that's the best. What does he do?
he hangs out with me, I guess.
Well, you know, it's not a matter of one person being better because what I'm probably strong on, you know, he's weak on what he's strong on. I'm probably weak on.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
That, that's always
Yes.
been the case for us. It seems
Yeah.
like I'm strong on like the video stuff. Like
Well, sure.
I've always been
Yeah, that's not my forte.
geared that way.
He has to train me every year for 20 years. I was like, so how do you get this set?
What's
when
this
the lights-
red button?
It's getting dark, Wes. How do I get this to look right? You know, and stuff like that. But I would say in other aspects, you know, can't think of any.
Oh, dude, that's cool. No, I can think of one.
Think of one.
Okay.
Because my probably one of maybe my strong points is just I fight through it
Yeah.
and I make myself get up and go.
I can
did
tell you
this
this.
morning. I was 45 minutes late to my coyote set that I was going to call, but
Well, you had nobody to keep you accountable.
that's right.
But Wes is really good with the things like the maps and keeping ahead of if we go this way and we look here and we making a plan ahead of time. The tech stuff, not just the camera stuff.
I'll tell you what you get me out of is a rut in the sense of there's times he's like, let's go down there and hunt that spot. I was like, I don't want to go down there and hunt that spot. I ain't never been to that spot. We know there's a big one over here. Let's hunt this spot. And sometimes we went and done that. We're like, hey, we need to be hunting this spot right here, you know. And I may have not went if he hadn't been like, let's go down here. You know, let's go hunt so-and-so. She told me I can hunt, or they told us we could hunt.
Right.
I was like, we never been in there. It's November 5th. We need to be focusing. We need to focus on where you know, and there's good bucks everywhere. So it's not and that has helped me, I'd say.
There
I would
have
say
been
for
times
sure.
where we went into a spot like that and you killed real quick.
On the first set.
Yeah.
You did what you do. He did what he does.
That's right.
Well, yeah.
You do what you do.
Bringing it.
Bringing it. Since since high school. I didn't know where that was going.
I was waiting for it.
I wanted something that sounded cool, but I couldn't
Yeah.
pull it out.
Yeah, well,
So surrounding yourself. Tip number 2, find people, for one, that have either done it more
Or done it better.
or done it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
even just people that support you. You know,
Yeah.
they may not be an expert at any particular thing, but if they're there to keep up with you and there to, just to, sometimes you just need somebody to say, "Hey, you're doing fine. Just go."
And that being said, we would like to prelude next week's episode. Next week's episode, me and Lathan have got our wives coming in.
Oh,
And it's the life of the hunter's wife. And
this could be
we're
so
going to
good.
talk with them about what it takes to be
yeah.
Married to me.
That could take
And you.
weeks.
Even though
I don't
Miss
have that
Becky
problem
won't
yet.
be here, she needs to get on and she can send in plenty of information, I'm sure.
We don't
yeah.
we don't need to get all that involved.
Yeah,
really.
might as well. So that's 4 tips. We better fly. Like,
Yeah. We're gonna have to.
Hey, it's
move.
going good though.
what none of those really crossed over to each other
No,
too bad.
not yet.
I'm impressed.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
All right, Doug.
Yeah.
So the second thing I jotted
And to
down
remind
was-
people, this isn't, like we said, necessarily our number 1 tip or number
No.
2 tip. This is
I
just
didn't
a
do it
tip.
that way.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
gotcha. So this is your second one,
right, and since we're primarily deer guys,
dear guys.
know your deer, not just the inventory deer, though that's really important, but
Like
know
last name, middle name. I mean, what's the...
I'm going to get there.
Social security number.
Know their habits. We've got some deer we've discovered over the years because we're in a somewhat unique situation with where Wes has ground, where Chris has ground, where I have ground, and then some of the surrounding areas that we have permission to use. We discover that deer do a whole lot more moving than you might have given them credit for, and even season to season changes. And so I like to inventory my deer. I like to know what deer I have in a particular area. That's important. And a lot of times we do that with cameras or with scouting and checking with your binoculars and whatever that is. But you'll discover that deer will vanish, say in September. Those dudes are gone. Now, we've discovered some deer randomly will relocate just coincidentally to other places that we use. Now, we'd never have known how far they moved or where they went. We just would know they disappeared and didn't come back till next year. But we've had probably, I'd say, 3 or 4 bucks that have traveled the mileage to where I would get pictures of them in the summer. They'd be over on Wes's in October, November, and maybe sometimes even move in and stay there for the fall, winter,
Yeah.
the rut time. And then they would slowly work their way back to their other areas. And in the summer, end up back where I'd get summer pictures again.
So when you say that, like in mileage, is that a pretty good ways?
I think you're talking 1.5 to 2 miles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the straight
Yeah.
line, yeah.
That we know of.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean we're in the outside edge of those,
Yes, we're
of
not.
that range.
So it would be really hard for a lot of people to learn that, though.
We
Yeah.
would
I mean,
never
obvious
know.
for sure. If you're running cameras and it's like, well, he disappeared.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him. I've got summer
Right.
pictures all summer,
Right.
and October 15th,
So,
fell in a hole somewhere.
right. And that's what you think because you'd have no idea. But,
So what do you tell that person
So-
as a tip?
okay,
Not
so-
to be discouraged, maybe.
well,
or
this is what I would tell you is as you learn your deer, you're not going to, let me start over. Most people aren't going to shoot that deer when it's a year and a half old, but he develops habits. And if you're hunting the same general area year after year, so that deer is 1, he's 2, he's 3 years old, you're developing knowledge of what that particular deer and then his buddy over there and this other deer, what they're doing. And as you need to really take note because there's a really good chance from season to season, he's going to do a very similar thing that he did this year in the past.
Can I add to this?
Go on.
So I think the tip would be deer have habits. And I think you could add to it that deer have personalities.
Absolutely.
Because different deer
Well, that's for
react
sure.
totally different
Absolutely.
than other deer.
Because you've got old warrior bucks that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
they get themselves killed because they'll come to rattling because they've got an attitude problem.
Yes.
Right. And others
Yeah.
would never
Just
respond.
won't. You know,
Yeah.
the next buck, it's like,
Right.
I'm not saying you could never rattle him in. I'm just saying
Well, so, you know,
you
and-
just, if
I mean-
you've
I mean,
rattled
and
at him
if-
2 or 3 times, you're like, he could care less.
right.
Yeah.
He's, a
not the
lover, not a
guy.
fighter, or whatever.
Right, right, yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, as you learn your deer, let's say, through the summer, you'll get real excited. Look at this group of bucks, you know, and everyone has fallen into this a number of times, probably, that hunts very much. If you're paying attention to your deer, well, those aren't the same deer you hunt in a lot of cases. Those are the
not.
deer you'll see in the summer. Now, a percentage of those deer will live there. Some deer are homebodies, and they will
Yeah,
stay
I was
pretty
gonna
tight.
say.
Yeah.
There will be some, but it's a smaller percentage
Yeah.
for sure.
Jarrett's got a homebody.
Right, right,
Yes.
exactly, right. And there's going to be those, and you hope there is, because you know that deer you can pattern and then hopefully take advantage of them using a similar area through the fall. But
In my experience, I would say the higher percentage are not homebodies.
exactly,
Right.
Because I was telling Jarrett back in October, you know, he's seeing his big deer and pictures of him, and I was like, man, he may not remember. I was like, I'd go kill him, man.
Yeah.
You got pictures of him the first 2 weeks of season. He's daylighting
Before
every
he
so
moves,
often.
right.
I was like, because in my experience, man, Halloween,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could be
somewhere
Everything
close to
changes, yeah.
Halloween, I mean, I've swore deer were dead and gone,
Yeah.
right,
and they show back up January.
right.
Remember Mr. J? They
Yeah.
show back up January 5th. You're like,
Yep.
where in the world?
Yep, that's right.
Seen him out here in the summer, and he's been gone. You just like somebody got him. You know?
Yeah, that's much more common. What you-
14th.
yeah,
January
14th.
14th. Yeah.
what you just described is much more common than a
Than a
homebody
homebody.
deer.
Yeah.
And I would say less than 10% of your bucks are going to be in that homebody category that just don't seem to leave that range.
And for anybody, some people wouldn't know that. You should know that
Well, I mean,
because you've been an outfitter for how many years?
oh goodness,
At least
almost 20.
50.
Since he was 10.
As long as I can remember.
But you've been an outfitter for enough years, run cameras, looked at properties, spent more time than maybe most driving around looking at them and different things like that. Like you said, some people would never use the terminology inventory and deer.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you're getting a count on them, and you've maybe that situation you guys got down there where Chris owns property that
Right,
borders
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and your friend owns property that borders that,
Exactly,
that
right,
borders west,
right. Yeah.
and then you're a mile down the road
Right.
and got other properties over there.
Exactly.
You
And-
can
and
put
then
that,
Mark
Yeah.
borders us.
yeah. So
Exactly.
you guys can all converse and
Yeah.
put that
And
data,
realize what's actually happening.
basically like putting data together.
I mean, amongst all of us, there's roughly close to 500 acres there. Probably.
Spread out in a weird checkerboard.
yeah, not all
Yeah.
one
Yes,
spot, but it's
exactly.
enough, and there's cameras out.
And we
Right.
all talk amongst each other, so we
Right.
know what
Yeah.
those deer are doing and when they're doing
If
it.
there's any way possible, you need to get along with your neighbors good enough.
That's a good tip right there.
Yeah. Getting
I
along
mean,
with your neighbors.
I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
We would
I
never
got a
know.
lot to say about that,
Well-
but it's not for this show, maybe.
Well, I mean that's possibly a whole episode in and of itself. But you know, we would never know these things if we weren't communicating about what we were seeing. Now, there's got to be some trust there because you know
sure,
that
some
information
people
is.
just aren't going to get along because they don't want to.
That's true, and the information is also somewhat precious to people because they're trying to get that deer,
Right.
You know, and they don't just want that information to be out there for everybody.
Secrets.
But,
Yeah.
but let me say this: you've got to be a team player.
Oh yeah, you should. be.
Like
Yes.
Yeah, for
me
sure.
and Chris and Doug, like
Yep.
we've known that big deer that
Yeah.
we were after this year.
Yeah.
He was running, and at different points, I would be like, "Hey, I think he's heading over your way,"
Yeah.
and Chris would tell me, "Hey, I think he's heading over your way."
Yeah.
I mean,
But you guys are all friends, so you would be excited if any one of you's got
yeah,
it.
yeah, but I
yes.
don't always think that that's.
But it
the
would be
case.
lovely if you could even be that way with the guy that hunts the neighboring property that you don't
Yes.
really
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and if you could take the frame of mind, we're all out here
Yeah.
wanting to enjoy it. If you're a trophy hunter, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, just be excited.
There's
I'm
the-
not saying you have to. Well, I think you should be excited.
No,
Yeah.
you should be
You
absolutely.
should be excited for somebody if they gets the deer, even though you had your heart or your mind set upon it. You're like, hey, I mean, good job.
That's right. Well, in just in life in general, if you can't find a way to be happy for people when they find success, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm just being straight.
It's a
I mean,
biblical principle that we ought to.
Yeah, I mean, there's and it's hard because when it's hard is when it's the deer you're after, and
Yeah.
then somebody a few properties over, a couple miles on the road gets it. There's always that feeling of, oh man, that deer's gone. He got
Didn't
the deer.
Jesus say something about love your neighbor?
Yeah. And so there's
that
always
means
that.
when he shoots your
yeah,
booner, you're like,
yeah. But you just got to find
That's
a,
very difficult
That's a
to do.
challenge.
it's there is something in you naturally that rears up a little bit, and you're like, but in the end, you need to find a way to be happy for people.
it's
when
called
they're
the
successful.
flesh.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so that's just a whole topic in and of itself. But hunting is
So your tip is spend some time on purpose to learn
yes,
the
learn
behavior
what,
of
exactly
particular deer.
individual
if you
deer
can do that.
and the deer as a mass, like as a whole, because everyone is going to be different, but
Sure.
you're going to learn something, and if you spend enough time,
Like Jared's got intel after this year that
it will help him next year.
If that deer didn't change his attitude
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and you pray blessings over him that nothing happens to him this summer,
Right.
he's going to be right in that
Yep.
2 mile square.
Yep. That's right.
Not that he don't never leave it, but
There's-
for the
there's
most part.
There's just I just develop a system where I know, because deer do tend to change up just about the time they come out of velvet.
For sure.
Part of my plan is when those deer disappear is to find them, relocate them. Now, a lot of times they're going to go to a place that I don't have access to.
Yeah.
And so that is what it is. But I make an effort to go ahead and try to find them so that I at least know whether I'm in the game or not. Some of those deer you never find. They disappear. You don't know where they went. They show up months later. And that's just what deer do. And that's how they win.
And
Mark from the big trail camera debate says the best way to do that basically is what he's saying is trail cameras.
They definitely help. There's no
it-
question.
I would say that's a huge thing in taking inventory.
I don't deny that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think another thing is what you talked about on the live like months ago or a month ago, where a guy gets out and starts driving and
Yes.
finds out
Yeah.
where his deer are moving at.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, I do.
Late
you,
summer.
you
I
do
a
some
lot of
glassing, and it's incredible what intel you can find just by glassing. I
Do
mean,
that in the summer, and then during season when you're like, "What's going on?" I was like, the place I've been hunting, I'm not seeing the deer, and all of a sudden I find them hanging out at this,
Right.
Yeah.
3/4 of a mile away, hanging out at another spot, and it's the same deer.
And
Yeah.
that may be a very brief
Sure.
thing happening that you can take advantage of today.
Remember the old timers always talked about, and when I say old timers, I'm talking about old videos that I used to watch as a kid. They always talked about mass. Remember was it mass, hard mass, soft mass?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
right.
foods.
Talking about the
Right.
food that
The
they eat at
foods and
times.
when they,
One of my points coming up.
yeah. Well, that being said, let's go to another point.
Chris.
Know your deer.
Alrighty.
Give them a name. Oh wait, you already do.
So making a plan and sticking to it is a big thing for me. I see people all the time. They make a plan and then 5 minutes before they hit the road, it's, oh well, maybe I should go do this or maybe I should go do that. And if you jump around like that, a lot of times you miss a lot of opportunities that you knew were already a good idea and you just did something else.
All right.
Say it again. Say it again. I got reading. Brother Jay says, pray for him. He has no use for line hunters.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Use your head, people.
Yeah.
Anyway, say that tip again. I got distracted.
Making a plan and sticking to it. There are times when you should change it, but I think for the most part, if you are constantly just jumping around,
Yeah.
you miss opportunity.
I'm a jumper.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and that's when you said that, one of my tips is be willing to not get locked in a mindset.
Yeah.
Jump around. jump around,
Jump up, and get down.
Oh man.
So we can stop that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
tip number 5 was
but-
be
but
ready
I
to
think-
improvise.
Yeah.
Oddly
Yeah,
enough, I
guess.
think both can apply.
Sure.
Yes.
Like,
Absolutely.
I think what you're saying is correct, because if you're of the mindset to where you're all the time chasing squirrels, that's no
Yeah.
good.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're of the mindset to where I go to the same ladder stand every single hunt and expect something different to happen,
Yeah.
Right.
that's not going to happen.
Right.
Right.
Like sometimes you've got to be willing to say, okay, that deer comes out on down my line. I need to change the way I'm hunting.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think so many guys get locked in a scenario where it's like, well, this is what I do. This is how I hunt. And you've got to be willing to say, I'm going to change the game. I mean, I've watched Lathan crawl out with corn stalks on his head. I've watched him swim rivers in his underwear in the middle of November. And all because he was willing to do things different than what a lot of guys would.
Well, I'll tie my next one was develop your ground game.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes in with
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah. I actually
Other
killed
than
my
opposite.
first deer this year, stalking one this year. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool. My first.
It's
deer on the ground.
surprising when you talk to bow hunters. You know, I'm sure it could apply to gun hunters to some degree, but it surprises me when you talk to gun hunters how many have never even shot a deer off of the ground or not in a blind.
Right.
Because I realize ground or blinds, boxes, whether they're pop-ups or boxes on the ground, I realize that's ground hunting, but it's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not against those either, and I would even, you know, I'm not saying I wouldn't do those. I have done some of those ground blinds and different things like that. But when I say ground game, I don't know how it goes with yours, because you're saying don't be too bouncy.
I don't know.
Stick with your plan.
Yeah, sticking with your
develop
plan,
a plan
yeah.
and stick with it.
Yeah.
And then you're saying you've got one to say,
I'm saying break out of the mindset of
don't
the norm.
be so stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's the old scenario. There's ditches on both sides of the road,
There are.
Right.
Yeah.
and you can get in a ditch on the right, or you could get a ditch on the left.
Yeah.
You know,
And
when you
this
need
is-
to get up in the middle of the road and
That's
do whatever.
why I love this platform, because it's like we can disagree on this. Like he can, and it's possible that Chris needs to be focused, and I need to not get stuck in a rut.
Right.
Does that make sense?
well, that's what one of my
You're gonna say,
yeah yeah.
Chris needs to be focused, and I not need to be focused.
I don't need to be focused.
No.
That's what
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. My thought was, you know, my first was, you know, plan ahead. My last point was be ready to improvise, because you need to make a plan. There has to be a plan. It can't be chaos.
Absolutely.
You need to make a plan, but know that there's a point.
I like chaos
There's a point.
in hunting.
I think
Yeah.
at different phases, when you're where you're at in your hunting,
Yeah.
it changes.
Sure. Like my dream
when-
is
when
to
we
shoot
were
a buck
younger-
before he kills me. Like I had to shoot him. He was going to kill me.
That's hilarious, because I've thought several times that they were going to kill you. But I
I've
thought that
never
one
had
was
to-
going to kill me that came
Yeah.
off the levee.
He was
Man.
coming to get you, I think.
Yeah, he was.
And he realized
Killed
he had
him
a
dead.
Yeah, then he realized he had an arrow buried
Yeah,
up in him.
that'll change the thinking.
Yeah.
You'll-
Yeah, it curves the attitude a little bit, but so like I guess what my tip on the next one would be, you have the only way, one thing that will break you out of a rut, and I don't know how it lends to yours. I got started saying it lends to yours, but maybe it doesn't. But developing, learning how to hunt deer on the ground, because here's the deal: if you can beat them on the ground, you can beat them in a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, and the greatest hunts I've ever been on, and maybe not the greatest deer as far as inches and size, but the greatest hunts that I've ever been on, I'd say you would say is the same,
Oh, yeah.
is when we stalked and whatever we did on the ground, and you know, well, the one that you're talking about, that big 8-pointer, you know, what we went 3/4 of a mile down a levee,
Yep.
across the field. We spotted him
We
bedded,
glassed him, saw where he was at.
spotted him bedded with a doe on a levee, and we worked and worked and worked and worked and got Well, on the way to him.
Yeah, on the way.
We're
to
on the
him, we
way,
had a-
sneaking down this levee. A huge 10-pointer comes out of nowhere, just across the wide open.
Yeah,
I look up, and I don't know if you've seen him or I seen him first. I was like, oh my. Yeah, he's coming right to us.
I think he saw us half hunched over,
and
trying
thought
to
we
get,
were deer.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, when they and this that we're talking about is primarily a rut thing.
Yes.
it is.
I call it
Yes.
their rut goggles or estrogen goggles.
Yep.
You know, when
Deer goggles.
when they've got those goggles on,
What you can get by with is unreal.
yeah,
Like they lose all sense of what's going on.
they
in
just
the
want to
world.
find a doe.
Yeah,
And if they think there's a buck around, especially dominant deer, 4.5, 5-year-old deer, if they think there's a buck around, they'll make some weird decisions. But anyway, we're sneaking up on that deer,
yeah,
and we look out across. Here comes this huge, wide 10-pointer, probably pushing 160.
yeah.
Anyway, good buck. So we're like, well, we'll just kill him, And you shot, didn't you?
Yeah, something weird happened though. Like my rangefinder misranged or something happened. Like I
We're coming to
I
the conclusion we
remember.
all need to shoot faster bows.
Well, maybe.
No, I'm just teasing.
I
something
remember
happened
ranging him.
because it wasn't a chip shot.
It wasn't.
It wasn't like he gave us a 15 or 20, but he
No,
gave you a
it was-
doable.
Yeah,
he
it,
gave
wa-
you
it was in the 50 range. I
right. He
think.
gave you a 45 to 50 yard out in the
Yeah.
wide open,
Right.
doable shot. It's doable.
And honestly, I think he would have closed the distance. He was
Yeah,
torqued
he was in La La. So he comes out there, and we're maybe 150 yards from the deer we're after,
yeah,
give or take, on the ground. I'm behind you with the video camera,
yeah.
and he misses that deer. Well, he's gone. Now we're going after the one we originally
Started with, yeah.
and we got up there, and that's the deer that
Well,
you
there
basically
was
made.
another one. Remember, we had
There was-
another one that came down to us. That was a small buck.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I
now.
remember he kind of boogered, and we were like, "Let's make it work for us."
Yes, you're right.
And it was so.
Well, he went up to your buck.
He did.
He went up on the levee. He smelled them up there bedded. You could tell he hit their wind or something and went up to them. And I mean, he come right back out. So
Yeah.
that big deer bullied him back out of there because he was bedding with his doe. When that little buck come out and left, he's like, I'm out, going to look for the next girl. It was the sun's getting down.
Yeah,
getting
and
close.
I remember telling you he's a bully.
Yeah.
We're gonna make that work for us. And
Yeah,
we
he was
went
like,
up
I'm
there-
basically just going to go at him
Right.
with reckless abandon.
Yeah,
You had your grunt call. You was blowing your grunt call and kicking corn stalks like I'm coming back. Either that buck coming
Right,
back,
right.
and that buck had already had in his mindset that these other deer won't leave me alone.
yeah.
So when he did that, that rascal come out of his bed on that levee and come charging down at
Yeah.
you,
He was coming to kill me.
and you
His
hammered him.
dream happened.
I know.
Footage was awesome.
It was.
Because
Like,
that deer
literally-
runs right up to you. After you shot him, he goes ahead and comes like to 10 yards.
Yeah.
Runs
he
at you.
spins around, looks at me, and then it's like
You're-
everything went
Yeah.
sideways.
Yeah, he heart shot him. So he turns and runs like 2-3 big bounds and just eats dirt out there in the cornfield.
That's a good one.
That's the best.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best. So anyhow, and I say that develop your ground game to say it does lend with what Wes is saying, probably more than Chris. I'm sorry about that,
You're
Chris.
good. You're good.
Because I have learned, I won't sit in a tree and watch them do those things. I'm not saying I assess the and look at the image and be like, all right, he's bedded with a doe. He's not coming over here. There's no reason for him to come over here. I was like, there's a levee, there's a patch of weeds, or I could walk within 50 yards of him and not even be quiet, and he's not going to know I'm there. And that's when I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to just get down and go bust him.
No,
if they're bedded
you
in the
have
middle,
to read the leaves.
yeah,
if that makes sense.
If they're bedded in the middle of a cut bean field, like 2 years ago, There's that 9-pointer. When I got
Yeah.
over on that levee and I sent you the picture, remember, I was like, look at him. He's laying out there with the doe in the middle of a cut being field.
Safe as can be.
I was like, there's nothing I could do. There's
Yeah.
nothing I could do to
Then
get on that
2
deer.
years ago, we had the nice 10-pointer that I worked all the way down the levee.
Oh, that was amazing. See, those are the most amazing hunts I've ever been on. And I would venture to tell people that to try it.
Man,
and
if I had killed that one,
that was awesome. It was an awesome hunt.
it was.
The footage was amazing. The deer was good.
Yeah.
Good buck. On the ground. What did we do? We got down. He's like, seen him
We
down there
saw
bedding.
him. Yeah, we saw him go down in there with a doe, bed down. And we were like, all right, so we can come back here this evening
And
and
hunt
set
him.
in the same spot
Right.
and hope he comes here.
Down this ditch or something.
Or since he's bedded and we know exactly where he's bedded at,
Yeah.
we can make this happen. And that's what we did.
yeah.
and-
Had a little buck get all in our business
Oh,
there.
man.
Little
Standing
120
face
or
to
something.
face with me.
Come walking up to us 5 yards. Bedded down next to us.
Yeah, bedded down.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Like,
he's just laying there like 6 yards from us, bedded.
Oh, man.
I remember looking back like, what do we do?
And once again, it would help to be in better shape
Yeah.
because we were crawling. I was like, oh, the muscles, they burn. You know? Not that it wouldn't, even if you're in shape, but
But that was a
anyway.
crazy hunt. I mean, we literally worked. I was
So-
18 yards from that deer when I shot
Oh,
him,
man, it was awesome.
and I could not get that deer to stand up.
We need to throw a scissor reel out just for people to see that, how awesome that was.
Screaming at him, like, before it was all said and done. That's
And he would
basically,
not stand up.
Hey, hey. He would not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When I say read the leaves, it was windy. We had the perfect wind. We had a perfect scenario for it.
Yeah.
Like
Stalking
we knew,
deer, wind is your friend.
Yeah, and we knew
Like the sound of wind. Yeah.
absolutely
Right.
because it covers over all that
you
leaf
can get away with a
movement
pot.
and-
Yeah.
Right.
and but it was almost to the point to where he couldn't even hear me at 18 yards,
Right.
and that would have worked out fantastic if we had glassed him, and we thought his body was turned a certain way, and when he stood up, he was facing me. Yeah, and it was like, what do you do here?
It was an amazing.
Like I tried. I mean, he had a slight quarter, and I was like, do I slip it or do I shoot in the front of that shoulder?
Yeah, that's a
And I
tough
was
call.
like,
That is a tough shot.
yeah, and I tried slipping it, and it was not good.
Yeah.
So
The courting toward is pretty tough.
it was, and man, when we were working it, I just knew the way he was laying, the way his head was laying, like it looked like he was not. But
So let's go on. Stay focused. Chris says stay, and you should. You gotta get a.
I
Get
think
a
that
focus.
applies.
It
Like,
does.
yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And then I'd say start venturing out and doing some ground hunting, and understand that it's not going to work most of the time. I've always said it won't work most of the time, but you'll have the most fun you've ever had hunting.
Yeah, I would agree there.
Yeah.
So one person said something that I'd like to address. Austin Gibbs said, "Let's talk ground shrinkage here," and which ties in with one of mine, and one of mine is set your expectations in advance. I think the years that I've shot little bucks, or bucks that when I walked up to I was disappointed in, and all that being said, who cares? Shoot what makes you happy.
Right.
But the years that I did that and was disappointed were years that I didn't go into it with a clear expectation of what I wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is important.
Like you remember,
I agree. Yeah.
I would even say maybe it helped people to look at pictures,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
look in magazines, and be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"This is kind of what I would like to kill." If that's what you want to do,
I would even say don't look at pictures that you see a celebrity holding, because
No.
that will lie to you so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
mean-
Because I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about in general.
Knowing what
Knowing what a
Sizing up,
140 is,
Yes.
knowing what a
Right.
150
Yes.
is,
Yes.
knowing what a one.
Exactly.
Remember the first time we went elk hunting, we were guided.
Yeah.
And remember, he brought in pictures. He said, so let me show you. This is a 250 bull,
Yeah.
Right.
250 inch bull.
Right.
This is a 300 bull. He said, see, when this bull's 300 and facing you, see what a 300 inch bull looks like facing you. See what a 300 inch bull looks like to the side. And it's the same concept
It
with
absolutely is.
For
deer.
sure.
But I don't know that all of those things will supersede adrenaline and ground shrinkage.
No,
They can't, but they can help.
as being
I
as
think-
prepared as possible does
Yeah,
help.
I think the biggest thing for ground shrinkage, and it's some people. So there's people that could watch that don't have a clue what that may
Yeah.
be.
What
You
that
know,
term-
So ground shrinkage is you think you've just killed a 140, you walk up and you just killed 112.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. They always look bigger on the
They
foot.
do. They
yeah.
do.
They always look bigger walking away from you.
They do.
Yeah,
That,
they
that's
always
a-
look bigger when they're
absolutely.
coming in, walking away. Just on their feet in general, they look bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they hit a certain place, it's like almost they get bigger when you walk up on them.
Yes, right. So one thing just to add, if you go in with no goals set, anything will do eventually.
Yeah.
And so having at least some sort of a plan does help to keep you focused. At least to not so much to know what to shoot, but to know what not to shoot
Yeah,
sometimes.
which marries to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some. Now, there's always a time. Like sometimes you're torn because as a hunter, you sit there and you think this was the most exciting thing that I've ever seen happen in the woods. You know, you see deer do something you've never seen them do before, and it kind of there's something in you that clicks as a hunter. You're like, I want that deer, not because
Right. Exactly.
not because it's a giant or because it's a certain thing, but because the circumstances were so
Yeah.
Have
And,
changed. or,
in that scenario, you need to kill that deer.
yeah.
Like, and there's been several times where I was like, this is it. Like, he's special because I deem him special.
Yeah. That's
Like,
right.
not because what's on his head is that great, but I want him.
that's right.
And
And that's really what it's all about.
that's what hunting is about.
And I wish people could embrace, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I wish people could embrace the ground shrinkage
Yeah.
because that's part of hunting.
It
Yeah,
is.
Just own it. Yeah.
Because don't be like, I shot the wrong buck, and I thought it got dark, and and some of
Right,
those surely maybe that happened, but maybe what really happened was he come crashing in, chasing a doe.
You're excited.
Your heartbeat
Right.
went from
Right.
hopefully in the 70s.
Yeah.
If you're 68 to 70, if you're in shape, because you got in shape for deer season, and runs all the way up to 140, and the adrenaline's pumping, and you're like, that's a good one, and I got to make a shot. Boom, you shoot him, and you're like, walk up to him, and he's 20 inches less than you thought, or 30, and you're like, I think you should be like, hey, I got a ways to go yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just be like, that was awesome, it was fun, it was exciting. Where'd I hit him?
Yeah.
Let's relish in the fact that I made a perfect shot on that deer, right behind the shoulder, double lunged him. It didn't go 60 yards.
That's right. Yeah.
If you're happy in the tree, why would that change when
Right.
you get down on the ground?
Right.
It shouldn't.
No,
Right.
no. it
Well,
shouldn't.
that's the stigmatism in trophy hunting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why sometimes I don't want anybody ever say, well, how wide is it? How tall is that tine? Let's measure the deer. Sometimes for just a little while, if I shoot a deer, I just want everybody to leave it alone. Those
Don't touch me.
yeah, just
Hands off.
and just leave the numbers out of it for a few minutes. Like just enjoy the deer, enjoy the experience, because once those numbers come in, no matter how much you'd like it not to affect how you think, it kind of does affect how you think. And so just enjoy that time first. And whatever that deer is, that deer is dead now. He's your deer.
That's right.
Whatever he is, that's what he is.
Good
And
shot.
I don't want it to affect how I think, though. I want it to be about the experience.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be people that sit out there and be like, trophy hunting in general is wrong
Right.
There will be.
because they're animals, and if we kill them, it should be just to eat, and we eat them, and all that stuff as well. But I don't have a problem with it, but I also would never look at a person and beat on them because they shot
Right.
a 3-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, man, some people are excited about that. And man, I've shot plenty of 3.5-year-olds. I was like, yeah, you know, and I remember when I was excited. So,
But I'm also not going to besmirch the guy that doesn't want to do that.
right. You have to have
Right.
that. You have to hold that because I do. Man, that's what we talk about. Man, there's a deer there that's, I mean, significant, you know, and you set your mind to try to figure out how to get that deer. And that's my favorite thing. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things in the world outside of my wife, kids, and the Lord, you know, is putting myself in a position to shoot a big deer, because it's not as easy in many places as it could be maybe in others, but you can't smirk at the person that's what he wants to do.
No.
And he can't smirk back at the neighbor that wants to shoot 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds.
But he
I always
might,
say,
and that's where as hunters,
people
I think we
do.
need to work together on
people
that.
do.
Yeah.
People
Like
do.
hunting is about development, like to a degree.
Sure.
Like you never, if you end the way that you started, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause I've
And-
probably only shot one deer in the last 6 or 7 years that I thought, he shrunk. But I used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not it's not that much has changed other than I'm a little more seasoned than I was 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
7, 8 years, 9 years ago.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean I hadn't shot what some people call small deer, because
Yeah.
I have. I'll show you pictures of them and be proud of them.
Yeah.
You know, it don't bother me a bit.
But
I
even
knew
those deer
exactly. I was
were
more
mature.
I knew.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I knew exactly when I let it fly. You know, I knew what he was.
It wasn't a mistake.
Yeah, and when I walked up there, I was like, "That's what he was."
Yeah.
You know, awesome.
Yeah.
So it's that's a deep. I don't know. That's not necessarily tips, but
it kind of is.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
can we hit one more?
I think we got one more in us. Doug, you're last.
Yep.
Last but not least.
I was going to say, go ahead. I wonder if it marries to mine, because I think it may be the most important one of all. Of
Okay.
them.
So I'm just going to hit number 3 on the list. And again, it's not necessarily that it's the most important to me, but that's where it is. So that's where we're going. Don't neglect woodsmanship. You know, all this technology we have, it's great.
Yeah.
Bows that shoot fast and smooth, and cameras and you know, all kinds of fancy gear, hunting clothes that are amazing and pretty expensive, and all this stuff. But we still need to go in the woods, not like a herd of buffaloes when we're going to our stand. We need to be paying attention to, that white oak tree's dropping acorns now. I need to focus on that. That persimmon tree's loaded this year. Look at that thing. All right, here in a couple weeks, they're going to be all over. And, you know, we need to pay attention to this and look for emerging food sources, because deer have a habit of really loving things when they're new. You know, they're eating, beans all summer, soybean fields. And now all of a sudden, white oak acorns start hitting the ground, and they hit them hard.
Yeah.
You know, and
They
so
fill themselves with it.
oh, they do. And then, you know, muscadines, start, and hey, here they are. And you don't really know they're even up there. And you walk, look on the ground here. All right. 60 feet up that tree, there's a vine dropping these things. And so, use woodsmanship, pay attention, look for those tracks. Don't just step over them. Look and see what what am I seeing here? Is this a big deer? Is this a small deer? Where are they going? What are they doing? And leave your area with as low an impact as possible, because, the future of that spot for that given season is going to have a bearing on, what did you just do when you were there? Did you tread lightly? Did you pay attention? And so I really feel like that's important. And we can overlook that real easy with technology now.
I think that may join up to mine,
Okay.
because what I feel like could be my most important was be deadly, be accurate.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a bow hunter, man, shoot that thing.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Know what it does.
Yep.
Have the frame of mind, because you've shot your bow so much at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Some people's like, why would you shoot 100 yards? I don't plan on shooting a deer 100 yards, but it refines
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know, my 30 and 40 yard shot.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
the frame
no
of
question.
mind, which would be kind of a woodsman thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way, when I've
Oh,
done
yes.
all the things you say,
Right.
when he comes by,
Right.
I'm gonna shoot him.
Yeah.
He's not gonna get by me. If I
Yeah.
pull the trigger, there's a high percentage chance
Right. Right.
that deer's going home with me.
I mean, there's, I agree with you 100%, but I'm not the guy that competitively shoots. I'm not that guy that's target shooting all the time and all that sort of thing.
I'm not that either.
Kick it
But-
over to this one, Jared.
But I can tell you that I've over the years developed a habit of shooting well with a bow,
Right.
and being able to crunch time. Go ahead.
you guys keep talking. Give me a minute.
Go ahead. You know, crunch time, I can do what I did on that target in the woods. Like,
Yeah.
I know when that deer's there. I know that when I take this shot, I can make this shot.
Right.
And it's not so much that it's a distance thing. Oh, I can kill a deer 80 yards. That's not what I mean.
That's not it. That's not what I'm talking
But
about.
when that deer is coming in and he turns at that spot, I already know I can make that shot.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because I've put in the time. And again, it's not because I'm an amazing shot, because I don't really even consider myself that. But I know I can do in the woods what I did at that target. And
Well, I mean, when you do it enough, and I'm not talking about shooting, you know, dimes at 80 yards. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you shot that bow so much
right.
that when everything goes black and you're in tunnel vision mode,
Yeah.
it just falls where it's supposed to fall, and the pin sets where it's supposed to
Yeah.
pin, and the finger does or the thumb does what it's supposed to do.
That's right.
I remember.
Because you can be the greatest scouter, you can have some of the
Right.
greatest properties, you can stay focused, you can do everything, every tip that we said. If he gets in 20 yards and you blow the shot, it's like
Yeah.
that was
What
all
was it all for?
in vain.
Right.
One of my biggest bucks with my bow I shot when he was at 17 yards, which isn't that far, but I remember that specific shot was amazing in my brain. And when I released that arrow, I watched it disappear behind the pin, and as soon as that happened, I went, "Oh, I got that one!"
You got
like
that
it
one.
was, and it was just awesome.
I'd say that's, to me, it's almost number one.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that because without the other ones,
Right,
you
right.
know,
Well,
but there's enough deer out there now in our region
Right.
Yeah,
that you're going to get a shot
Yeah.
if you go.
And
Yeah.
with all the different styles of hunting, and things that we can hunt, if we're out west in the mountains chasing elk or mule deer or bears or whatever we're doing, or hunting whitetails out of a stand or on the ground, whatever that is, you still have to be proficient with that weapon. And, that's going to be, there's just not a lot of shortcuts here. You've got to shoot that bow. You've got to practice. You got to practice.
It's good for shirt tails. They need to bring that back, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in the old days when you missed, people may not realize that you used to get your shirt tail cut off, didn't you?
Right. Yep.
Me and Wes was in a camp where they cut a guy's shirt tail off one time, and he did not like it.
Yeah. I
didn't
don't think
like
it's
it.
the kind of thing people love.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else is.
He missed an
having fun with it.
elk, and that night at the campfire or the camp dinner, they cut his shirt tail off, and they make you sign it and date it.
Oh my!
And they brought out a whole bag
No
of
kidding.
shirt tail of people down through the years that's missed.
Oh,
And there's always, it's not hunting if you never miss.
oh
You're gonna
my.
miss,
Yeah.
you know. But take out those elements of. Take out those silly misses.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's right.
And when you miss, it's like I missed.
Yeah.
yeah.
The things that are within your power to avoid, you should avoid.
Yeah.
And by practicing and knowing that bow, and it makes a difference. No
All
doubt.
right.
So,
Well,
so
we've-
real quick rehash. What were they? Number one. What would we say is the number one that we? You guys can't even remember your own.
Well, I mean,
I mean,
there's the plan ahead. Okay.
preparing for the shot is probably my number one.
Yep.
Yeah.
As far as getting on the deer I'm after, forgetting about the other things, the knowing your deer, they're like studying the
So
deer.
number one, you would say know your deer.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
If
I think for me personally, my number one is what I just said.
Yeah.
Like,
Shoot.
I mean, I want to be able to be so proficient that I pull it back. I mean, I practice things like shooting fast,
Right.
Yeah.
pull it back, get on, boom, shoot. You know, I do that out here by myself at times. Just pull it back, and I've got like 3 seconds to send it, because sometimes all you got is 3 seconds to send it.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. I'd love to develop out here a walking shot on a cable or something,
Yeah.
because
Hey, we need to set that up.
to shoot a walking deer, you know, because most people are going to gut shoot a walking deer.
Years ago, I had a setup with it. It was kind of like a zip line setup, and I had a target set up. You know,
There will be people that will look at that and say, not ethical. What would you argue on that?
I would say in the last several years, if the deer's walking, I've shot him. And I've seen the podcasts lately where they talked about don't do it. I would never do it. You'll gut shoot him. But I guess I should say if your mindset is, you know, if you shot your bow enough
right.
and
And you know the mannerisms of your deer.
you know, because a deer that's walking, he's making sound. His feet are crunching leaves.
Yeah. He's less likely to jump the
You
string.
know,
Yeah.
he's just in that mode, and
Would you
And
encourage
there are
that to the
deer-
average guy?
maybe not. There are deer around here when you go, meh, they
They leave.
Uh,
They might be gone.
yeah,
they
they turn inside out.
Yeah. I'm not in the habit of doing that. I can tell you right
Yeah,
now.
I've met at several deer
Yeah.
that
I love that video.
were gone. You know, I
Yes.
was like, what just happened? And we've had it. I think we probably had it happen on video. You bleed
Oh,
it on.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And they're out, Jack.
I've resorted to whistling and clicking
Yep.
at them, you know, because it's just a different sound, like a
Right.
squirrel bark at him, you know, and get him to stop. But I've found, you know, if I lead him 3 inches,
Yeah.
I hit him right behind the shoulder.
there's
I'm
a-
talking.
What
I'm
about-
not
what
talking
about
like.
a
I'm not
deer?
talking a. Yep. I'm not talking about a. I'm not talking
Darton
about.
has the technology.
I'm not talking about like a rut, stomp,
Right.
walk
No,
fast.
no,
I'm
yeah.
talking about a saunder.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'd say to people, I don't know, if you shoot enough, maybe you'd feel comfortable making that shot. But man, I've kind of quit stopping them, and they can say what they want to say, but they're the ones I shot at are dead. You know,
Yeah.
I did maybe get the back of the lungs of one, liver, a couple years ago. You know, but he only went 120 yards or so. So I
Yeah, the circumstances involved in that could vary a great deal. So, you know, there are instances where, you know, a deer's walking because it's spooked. Yeah, this might not be a good time to shoot at that deer. You know, it's hard to say, but a slow walk, a feeding deer, I see no reason why, you know, you shouldn't take that shot.
Yeah.
Now, if things are happening so fast that all kinds of red flags and doubts are in your mind, don't take the shot. I mean,
Right.
you know, obviously there's enough going on where you probably shouldn't be taking that shot. But I mean, just a deer slowly walking, like I'm not going to yell at that deer. I'm not going to mess with that deer. I'm going to leave it on. I would be more likely to just let it walk away and not shoot at all than to really make a big stink about it.
I mean, if it's the right deer and I think he's getting away, I would probably do something to try to get him stopped. But if I knew, I was like, I've got to stop him to shoot.
Right.
Like I've had some big deer chase does by me
Right.
that I screamed at them,
Yeah.
you know, and they stopped, and then you shot them, you know. But of course, they're running.
Yeah. Again, that's the circumstance. So
You got to get their attention.
Yeah, you know, you have to make your decisions based on the circumstances of that particular hunt and that particular deer. And there may be times where that is the difference between getting a shot and not getting a shot was that you had to stop the deer. If you didn't, he's gone.
Yeah.
And then you decide what you do.
I don't know. We ventured off on that, but
That's all right.
that's probably my number one would be just being deadly behind your bow.
Yeah. And Chris, yours was
Preparing for the shot.
prepare for the shot. All right.
Which is kind of
I think mine would be
Yeah.
don't let your mindset be locked. And probably number 5, bring lots of little Debbies. So remember when those were like 50 cents a piece?
Yeah, and I'm still think we should petition Little Debbie to make a quiet open package.
like a
Ooh, yeah.
Ziploc.
Like one that doesn't sound like the wood's coming apart when you're trying to open it.
I have a feeling they don't care about our interests as much as we do. But we can try. There's no harm in trying.
They could call it their in velvet packaging.
In velvet.
Soft and supple.
I like that. I like that.
See, now that might actually be something they'll go for. It's hard to say.
Maybe we should develop our own.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not out there and
Call
it's
them
not
little,
right,
call them little Trinas or something like that.
All right, guys. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff this evening. Some of it was probably useless, and some of it was probably good. So
Yeah, some of it's all right.
I don't mind. We ran some batteries down. We did
That's
all kinds
right.
of good stuff. Yeah.
just a real quick touch base with a few things. Darren Montgomery watched, Jay Wallace, Mark Phillips,
Marky Mark.
Austin, Tim Legg, Austin Gibbs, J.D. Hewitt. I'd just like to say thank you guys for tuning in. There were several people who tuned in that I'm sure I didn't touch, but
Right.
just wanted to thank you guys for checking it out. So next week, life of the hunter's wife. So yeah. Figure out how to say that. So
Could be interesting. couldn't
yeah,
it?
I think it will be.
Oh, that should be very good.
Yeah. So check it out next
So
week.
begin to pray for us now.
That's right.
No, it'll be good.
Yeah,
It'll be good.
absolutely. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. If you wouldn't mind, share, like, comment. We appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, ring the bell. So, and then for this week, this is up for discussion. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.